Hi, this is Samantha Clark, and this is my presentation on Jim Burke's Effective Instruction. So I will talk about the book and relate it to my experiences teaching and what I can use in the future. So first, instruction that works. Some principles here is that he suggests varying instructional methods and strategies. A way to do this is to provide multiple lesson entry points. So for me, when I'm teaching English, let's say a student prefers reading silently or prefers reading at home. While the audiobook is playing, I can tell students that they can read ahead if they'd like. Another thing that they could do is during maybe vocab instruction, provide a variety of activities so that students can grasp the concepts from multiple entry points, so from multiple methods of learning. And doing that, we should know how our students learn best. Some students learn best by doing. Some students learn best when we tell them exactly what they're supposed to be doing, when they're creative, when they create physical representations. We should do a survey so that we know what entry points our students best learn by. Employ a range of instructional modes. So maybe sometimes we're lecturing with a PowerPoint, sometimes it's a Kahoot, sometimes it's a video, sometimes it's through a handout. Use a range of strategies for your students. Utilize groups. Students learn best in conversation. That is what we've learned so far. Academic conversations help expand and build upon background knowledge. An example from my teaching is that in order to prepare for writing, students are given the prompt ahead of time, and they have a class session in which they pull quotes to prepare for in-class writing. And they do this in groups, so one person may tackle one part of the book, while the others tackle different parts of the book so that they can discuss what is most effective and what they will need for the in-class writing. And develop background knowledge. So we've talked a little bit about building upon their background knowledge. We want them to come into the classroom and we want to utilize what they already know culturally and academically. We need to teach students how to think, learn, and remember. So as a teacher, we need to teach our students to be methodical and strategic. So we need to do this with our teaching, but we also need to teach them that metacognition to plan out how they are going to tackle a task. We need to cultivate different types of intelligence. Like I said, students learn different ways. Some students are intelligent when it comes to math. Some students are really, really good readers. And we don't want to make a student feel less intelligent just because they're not quite good at, say, ELA, like my class. So we need to cultivate their intelligence, bring in their knowledge of other subjects. If they're really good at history, they play video games a lot, their response time is insane, we can bring those things into the classroom to connect, to transfer knowledge. Instill key habits of mind. So not all of our students are going to come into the classroom knowing how to study, how to read academically. We need to teach them effective habits. We need to initiate discipline-specific thinking. So let's say my discipline is ELA. When that is an approach to literacy, we're teaching literacy for other subjects, but it's also a discipline of its own. It has its own academic language. So we need to teach them literary devices. We need to teach them to look for devices in reading. So they're not just reading for the content, but they're grasping why a writer did a specific thing and what reasons, what purposes there are to infer. We need to assess understanding and use assessments to improve teaching. So this means needs assessments. Before I teach vocabulary and I have this big list of words that I really want to teach my students by the end of the week, maybe just give them a list of them and have them tell us which ones they already know. Do a little survey of ones, I know this, I kind of know this, I don't know this at all. If all students know certain words, then we don't have to teach them. Assess their needs before we instruct, and this also helps with the ZPD. So we want to be able to know where our students are so that we can teach them in that zone of proximal development. We want to give them that productive struggle. If all of my students are more advanced and I don't realize it, then they're going to be bored and they're not going to be learning anything. different types of assessments. Don't always have a multiple choice. My guide teacher really likes multiple choice tests in response to the text, and I disagree with it. I think in my own classroom I would do writing responses. I would do word game. I would do something different every day to keep students interested in learning. Having clear objectives is a big one. We see this in multiple of our texts in the program. Clear objectives from the teacher will help prevent that gray area. Students will know exactly how to complete a task, and they will be graded on that. Because if they didn't know, for instance, that they needed to break it up into different paragraphs and have a concluding paragraph, like is what's happening right now, we weren't very clear, we're realizing, and no students had a conclusion paragraph. How are we going to justify deducting points if 90% of the students didn't do this? Our objectives have to be clear. That way we're grading them on that criteria. We have to teach self-assessment. And a basic of this is just proofreading. Teach them how to proofread. Sometimes we skim past our own words and it's really hard to grade ourselves. It's really hard to find our missed words, our grammatical errors, because we know what we wrote. So teaching them how to self-assess is a whole other level of instruction. Meaningful feedback. This is a huge thing from the instructor. Is our feedback just writing all over their page, writing all over their essay like my guide teacher wants us to do? Another thing I am being silent about because I'm learning from her. Our feedback has to be meaningful. How are they going to notice, oh, my language here wasn't as clear as it could be, if they're just focusing on the fact that their citations were missed, or any other minor spelling errors that are in the same color written all over the page. Moving on, we need to use the right tools and technology to enhance instruction. So using an array of technologies. There are so many programs online and games for us to play with our students that are engaging and help them learn. Choose what's most appropriate and effective. So maybe today a Kahoot isn't good for identifying literary devices in this novel. But maybe we can put it on the board and we can analyze it in front of our students with the technology. Challenge students using technology. Have them explore new ways to use technology. And then maybe use challenging technologies. Make sure that our environment is appropriate. So this comes down to, are we organized? Do you come into the classroom and know exactly what you're prepared to do? Are the goals on the board? Is there enough there as a learning environment for them to be productive? Culture. So we need to support all students to ensure success. Every individual student. We need to identify and teach to students' strengths, like we mentioned before. Students learn different ways. Students have different strengths, different preferred subjects, and we can connect with that. Provide different types of support. Students all learn differently, and we have students that may be learning at a slower pace, maybe learning at a faster pace, and we need to support them in a variety of ways and differentiate instruction. Some students might need scaffolding when they're writing their essays. Some they don't want to do that. They want to have whatever structure they want in order to achieve the goal. Use various methods, strategies, and configurations, and demonstrate faith in students. If we're demeaning students, they're not going to be very excited to participate in a task we instruct them to do. Maintain a safe, productive learning environment. Have clear and high expectations. Cultivate a safe, respectful environment, consider students' developmental needs, and celebrate success. A way to do this is that, let's say they write poems, I can black out their names and put the poems all over the classroom so that they know that their success is recognized and that the classroom is their own. Curriculum basics. Teach skills and knowledge in context, having authentic experiences. This means they're not writing the 50th essay they've ever written about whether video games are good for them or not because they've seen this a million times before and it's no longer authentic. Or they're not reading something that has nothing to do with them. Maybe the audience of this piece is 40-year-old white women in Arkansas. This has nothing to do with them. It's not authentic. It's nothing that they can grasp. We want to integrate skills and knowledge. We're not just teaching the content, but we're teaching them transferable skills. So when I'm teaching them to locate an argument in a text, I want them to be able to do that in their social science class. I want them to be able to identify purposes in the future. Develop fluency through variation. This is huge in English. Organize instruction into patterns so that students recognize it every day and they know what to expect. Teach a range of skills and knowledge to transfer to other contexts. Organize instruction around big ideas and essential questions. So we go into it every day, the unit is labeled, the unit is recognized, the students go in knowing what they're expecting. There's a big question for that day that they're trying to answer, so we can frame and guide instruction with that. Connect the materials. If this is under one big umbrella unit, make sure they know the purpose of the daily unit, the coherence. They need to know that today has a purpose, but they also need to connect today to yesterday, and then tomorrow will be connected. Everything is coherent, everything is cohesive, and there are different perspectives represented. So we're representing our students, we're bringing them in by noticing them. We need to help students make those connections for transfer and use them to improve comprehension, increase engagement, and enhance memory. Last but not least, we need to design lessons and units for maximum learning and engagement. So focus on desired outcomes when designing instructional sequences. Work from the last task, work from your big goal, work from the essay. So if I want them to write an analysis essay, but I never analyze anything with them, I never talk about what analysis is, how can I expect them to accomplish that task? So align instruction with that assessment and with the appropriate standards. Make sure my standards align with my task and that my task is actually working towards a standard. Motivate and engage students. We can engage them by using hooks, and we can also engage them by having authentic tasks, motivate them. Make sure you simply believe in them, believe that they can do something, tell them they can do something, instill growth mindset. Cultivate independence. So we want our students to slowly fall off that scaffolding and slowly be able to do the tasks we assign them. Eventually my students may not need to use outlines anymore. They can create their own outlines and teach for understanding, just simply doing those informal assessments as well, making sure everyone's on task. Don't just skip from one thing to another. We don't want just the surface learning. While that's important, we want them to dive deep into everything we teach them. Okay, thank you so much.